Welcome back to the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday episodes here on Everything Sports with Aman and Evan YouTube channel. Obviously, these 10-minute episodes are exclusively to YouTube. If you still like our 30, 40-minute episodes or longer episodes, make sure to tune into our podcast channel over on Apple and Spotify. And obviously, you get shorts like five, sometimes six, sometimes even seven times a week. So make sure to stick around here on YouTube for that. You get content daily. That's why we literally cover every single topic across most sports during the week. So that way we fit in everything, all our thoughts. But here we are, man. The championship games have happened, and my God, were they entertaining. So, first off, obviously, you're going to hear my thoughts today. Evans, a combination of Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll be back. And potentially Wednesday for the short. But I'm just talking about longer episodes. And then, of course, with me, Evan, and in all likelihood, Jordan for the Saturday episode over on Apple and Spotify. And obviously, we listed all our thoughts, our predictions beyond what we post on the shorts Saturday. So I keep stressing it. Tune in to Spotify or Apple if you want to hear our thoughts on every single football game and also basketball ones. Because obviously, we're going to cover more basketball once that starts after a week or two post Super Bowl. But the first championship game, AFC Championship, Ravens Chiefs final score 17-10. The Chiefs did move on. Kings of the AFC once again, and they really found their stride at the perfect time because they sort of limped into the playoffs. But I said on Spotify and Apple that at some point I believe this playoff has been full of surprises with the Texans, the Browns not doing really well. That was a surprise. The Eagles, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers. And so there's so many surprises. And so I was just like, experience is going to prevail at some point. And Mahomes was held scoreless in the second half, but the Ravens offense couldn't get going. And if you've been following the podcast closely, I've called Lamar Jackson that he's not good in the playoffs, whatever. And his performance against the Texans, honestly, it was an insane performance. It's going to be him, and I really want McCaffrey to win MVP because there wasn't that quarterback that dominated a lot. I keep saying this every week that McCaffrey should be MVP. But that doesn't take away from Lamar Jackson. Give credit to Lamar, and even though he did throw a pick and a fumble, the loss is somewhat on him. Zay Flowers is a rookie. He's got years left. I do fully believe that the Ravens will be back in the championship game next season. Obviously, you have to take into account a healthy Bengals team because you got to believe that if Joe Burrow was healthy, they definitely would have been challenging the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. It was those four teams that could go to the Super Bowl, and obviously eventually the Chiefs did, and the play calling was confusing, man. You didn't even give rushing attempts to your running backs. You're making Lamar Jackson drop back and then rush. It was just confusing play calling. I'm just wondering, why would you move away from the things that have worked all season long? And even though the Chiefs defense has been elite all season long, no one can stop Lamar Jackson. No one can stop the Ravens rushing attack because I feel like you're bound to get 100, 150 rushing yards just guaranteed if you play your normal ball. And it's not taking away from Lamar Jackson's throwing ability because obviously he can pass. But in my opinion, he's not really a passing quarterback. He might accumulate yards. He might have not as good targets as other quarterbacks, but in my opinion and a lot of people's opinions, he's used more as a rushing quarterback. And that's fine. He led his team in rushing as a quarterback. It's the first time that happened in NFL history, I believe. And it's just shocking to me. Like, even though the Chiefs' defense is so good, you didn't you didn't really tire them out. You didn't really use clock, and obviously that Zay Flowers fumbling before he broke the plane was huge because obviously that actually would have tied the game, or they would have been a field goal difference. So Lamar Jackson wouldn't have had to throw downfield and throw that pick. But it showed like experience, man. Andy Reid, the whole coaching staff was poised, the players were poised, and obviously the refs they kind of benefited the Chiefs. I'm not saying that that's the reason why the Chiefs won. I'm just saying like the Chiefs they never panicked, even though they weren't putting points on the board or going downfield. They did enough to win, and that's all you need in the playoffs. Because if you win by 1, win by 30, a win is a win. If you lose by 1, lose by 30, a loss is a loss. Same way. So they did what they were supposed to do. The Chiefs marched into Baltimore against a very tough defense, and in the end, 17 points was enough because the Ravens really couldn't get anything going on offense. More thoughts on that game will come out during the week, but now we shift our focus to the NFC Championship game, man. And again, if you guys have been following the podcast, I said both games would be one possession. I feel like that was always going to be the case, and it wasn't looking like that, man. I was right about the first game, 24-7. I thought, man, the Lions are here to compete, rematch against the Chiefs. Obviously, the first game of the regular season, the Chiefs didn't really know Rashee Rice was going to be that great. Lions still young team, whatever. They're bursting onto the scene. They beat the Chiefs by 1 earlier in the season. And so every indication was a rematch in the Super Bowl. Then Kyle Shanahan and the Niners had something to say. Even though Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, whatever, he has playoff experience from last year before he got hurt in the championship game. And honestly, I thought because like the Niners rush defense, like let alone pass, their rush defense was so uncharacteristically bad in the first half. And so I'm like, they'll settle down second half. They'll catch up over 2 quarters. We could see potentially an overtime game, but that was just showing experience. Like the Niners were poised. Purdy never panicked. Like even though he threw that pass like across his body to Juwan Jennings, which I think it's fair to say many people didn't expect him to catch that, but ultimately led to a field goal, touchdown. Obviously help from the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. And Dan Campbell, man, he says he doesn't regret the decision, but you left 6 points on the board by going for it on 4th down. The one in the first half is fine because you could put points, huge points on the board against a team at home in the championship game who everyone expected to move on. So I get going for it in the first half, but in the second half where Reynolds been dropping passes, Jameson Williams dropping passes, like I feel like you just take the field goal because I get trying to be ahead in the championship game against a team like the Niners, and honestly you have to live with your mistakes. And had that gone converted, had the Lions won, everyone would have been praising Dan Campbell. So in hindsight, maybe you shouldn't have gone for it, but I like how Dan Campbell's not regretting his decision because he's been that type of way all season long, being aggressive play calling, fake punts, fake field goals, going for it on 4th downs a lot, even though in some cases you probably should have taken the extra point field goal because even though the refs kind of gave that regular season matchup to the Cowboys when they played the Lions, you could still argue that after like the first 2 times, just kick the field goal or kick the extra point, go into overtime. So Dan Campbell, he never moved back from his philosophy, which is what the Ravens, they should have never moved away from rushing the ball, deep passes, play action passes, using Lamar Jackson more in the run game, using Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, even Dalvin Cook was signed. He was supposed to give you at least some yardage, some good playing time, but you didn't really use him since you signed him. I believe he has some juice left, I believe he can make somewhat of an impact to a championship team, which is what he was supposed to do with the Ravens. You didn't really use him at all since you signed him, because he easily could have given you maybe 30, 35 more rushing yards, and then obviously 30 passing yards, something like that from checkdowns, because Dalvin Cook's also a threat in the passing game. So Ravens play calling ultimately let them down, combined with I wouldn't really put it on Lamar as much, but I feel like 20, like 30, 35 on Lamar or whatever, and then obviously the rest was Zay Flowers and the coaching staff of the Ravens. The Lions, as for the Lions, they moved the ball downfield with the exception of the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble, but then Dan Campbell being aggressive ultimately costed them. And maybe does this change his philosophy next season? Who knows? I believe he's still going to go for it on most fourth downs. If it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 1, whatever it is. But I feel like in the championship game, when you're the Detroit Lions, you definitely just take the field goal, go for the tie, because you saw it didn't work in the first half. You saw the Niners had all the momentum in the world, and he went for the big, like, not really kill shot, but he went for the big call and going for it on 4th down ultimately costed them, because the Niners defense was having momentum. Even though the Lions were moving the ball downfield, you never really thought that, oh, I don't think the Niners can come back from this. Like, they were very much in the game. They had all the momentum on their side. And so, I disagree with the call? Yes. In hindsight, he should have kicked the field goal, but Dan Campbell's aggressive. The players support him. The players probably agreed with that call as well. So, I'm not too mad at it. Unfortunately, like, Jake Moody even missed a field goal in the first half, and so you see these rookies not. Jahmyr Gibbs did well, and it's just unfortunate fumble. Zay Flowers did really well, unfortunate fumble, and so it just kind of sucks when you see that happen to especially a rookie, and when it costs you the game like that, it's just sad to see, but it is what it is. You live and you learn. They have years left, a lot of years left in the league, and the Lions, I feel like they will be back, but as Dan Campbell said, and this goes for the Ravens and other teams as well, like, it's going to be twice as hard next year to be in this same position, because now everyone's going to respect you. Now everyone's going to look at you like, yeah, damn, you're a threat. And so Dan Campbell's philosophy I do agree with, but sometimes it just costs them, and that was the case yesterday. Brock Purdy was extremely poised too in the second half. Didn't really panic. Rushed really well, and so poise from the Niners, and like I said, that comes from experience. Experience is going to prevail at some point, and that's what happened yesterday in both games. But with that, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Tune in tomorrow to listen to Evan's thought about everything, Super Bowl preview, and everything about our podcast shorts, the episodes on Apple and Spotify. Have a great week.